The wind changed first. It was a small thing, almost nothing, but Nora felt it in her bones. 1 minute the mountain air was clean and sharp, carrying the smell of pine and wet stone. The next minute it turned stale, like air that had been trapped somewhere for a long time. She stopped on the narrow trail and looked up. Above her, the mountains rose like dark waves. Clouds dragged their bellies across the peaks, hiding the sun and making the afternoon feel like early evening. Nora checked her watch and then her phone. The signal was gone again, just the same empty icon she had seen all morning. She told herself it was fine. Nora had planned this hike for months. She had saved money, bought new boots, and studied maps like a student before an exam. She was not reckless. She was careful. This was her way of being steady again after a year that had made her feel like a cup that had been dropped and glued back together. She adjusted the straps of her backpack, took a sip of water, and kept moving. The trail had started clearly near the small parking area by the forest line. It had even had a sign with a cheerful name, something like Eagle Ridge Loop. But after 3 hours of climbing, the path narrowed into something older and less certain. It twisted through rocks and tough grass, past a stream that did not look like it belonged to the bright world. The water ran cold and fast, whispering against stone as if it were trying to tell a secret. Nora paused again and listened. A faint sound drifted through the air, not from the stream. It was a soft metallic tap, like a chain lightly hitting a wall. Tap, tap, tap. She turned her head slowly. The sound seemed to come from uphill, off the trail, behind a wall of boulders and thick bushes. For a moment she thought it could be a loose sign or an old cable line moving in the wind. But the wind had stopped. Nora's first instinct was to ignore it. She was alone, far from other hikers. People always said to stay on the trail. She had told herself the same thing when she left the car. Then she heard it again, closer this time. Tap, tap. Her mouth went dry. Nora tried to laugh at herself, but the laugh came out thin. She reminded herself that mountains held strange sounds. Animals. Falling stones. Old metal left behind. Still, she stepped off the trail. The ground was uneven and slick in places. She moved carefully, using her walking stick to test the soil. The bushes scratched her sleeves. A thorn caught her jacket and tugged. Nora freed it, annoyed, and kept going. A few minutes later she reached the boulders. They were stacked like a rough wall, dark gray and damp. A narrow space between them looked like a crack in the mountain. It was not wide, but it was wide enough for a person. The air from that crack was colder than the rest of the hillside. It smelled wrong, like dust and old metal and something else Nora could not name. She leaned closer, and that's when she saw it. A door. Not a wooden cabin door, not a tourist gate, not anything that belonged out here. It was a thick metal door set directly into the rock, as if the mountain had grown around it. The surface was scratched and dull, with patches of rust like dried blood, though Nora told herself it was only rust. There was no handle, no sign, no warning. Just a round wheel in the center, like the kind on an industrial hatch, and above it a small keypad covered by a plastic flap. Nora stared, her heart beating fast. This was not part of any hiking trail. She stepped closer and ran her fingers along the edge where the door met the rock. The seam was tight, too clean. Whoever put it here had tools and time and money. It looked like it was meant to stay hidden. The tapping sound came again. This time Nora realized it was not a chain. It was a loose metal tag on the keypad flap, tapping against the plastic. The flap was half broken, hanging slightly open. Nora swallowed. She should leave. She knew she should leave. The smart choice was to turn around, get back to the trail, and tell someone later. A ranger, maybe. The town office. Anyone. But she was already here, and the door was real, and the keypad was right at eye level. Curiosity was a quiet force, but it could push like a strong hand. Nora lifted the plastic flap. Beneath it, the keypad had numbers and a few faded letters. Dust had settled into the cracks. It had not been used in a long time. Or it had been cleaned recently. She pressed one key lightly. Nothing happened. She pressed another. Still nothing. Her eyes moved over the door again. The wheel in the center was locked in place. If there was power, it was asleep. or there was no power at all. Nora took a step back, exhaling slowly, feeling foolish. She had let a sound pull her off a safe path. She would go back now. Then she noticed something on the rock beside the door. A symbol. It was carved into the stone, about the size of her hand. 3 triangles connected in a circle, with a straight line cutting through them. It looked official, but also odd, as if it belonged to a world she had never seen. Nora felt a chill on her skin that had nothing to do with the cold air. She bent closer. Below the symbol, someone had scratched a few words into the rock with a sharp tool. The letters were uneven, like the hand had been shaking. Do not open. Nora stared at the words until her eyes stung. Her stomach tightened. She stood up quickly and looked around, as if someone might be watching. The hillside was quiet. The bushes moved slightly in the slow breeze. Far away, a bird called once and then fell silent. Nora took 2 steps back. Then her foot slipped on a patch of wet stone. She caught herself, but the walking stick hit the door with a loud clang. The sound echoed strangely. Not like a normal echo that fades into open air. This one seemed to roll inward, swallowed by the mountain. And then, from behind the door, something answered. A low hum. Nora froze. She held her breath. The hum lasted for 3 seconds and then stopped. After that, silence returned, heavier than before. Her mind raced. Maybe the stick had hit some hidden sensor. Maybe there was a power source inside that had woken up. Maybe it was an old storage place for equipment. Maybe it was a storm shelter. Or maybe it was something nobody wanted found. Nora backed away again, shaking her head. She was going back. Right now. She turned. And the keypad beeped. A small light blinked on, weak and yellow. It was like an eye half opening after sleep. Nora spun around and stared. The keypad screen showed a single line of text, faint but clear. Welcome. She felt her throat tighten. Her hands were cold even inside her gloves. The screen changed. Enter code. Nora did not move. She was not entering anything. She did not know any code. This was insane. But then the door wheel made a soft click, like a lock loosening. Nora stepped forward without meaning to. Her body moved before her thoughts could catch up. She reached out and placed her hand on the wheel. It felt colder than ice. For a second she just stood there, her palm on metal, her breath turning white in the air. She thought of the warning scratched into stone. Do not open. She pulled her hand back. Then she heard something else from inside. A faint sound, like a slow scrape. Nora leaned closer and pressed her ear near the seam of the door, careful not to touch it. The scrape came again. It sounded like something heavy dragging across a floor. Nora's mind flashed to every story she had ever heard about people who found things in the woods that did not belong. She tried to tell herself those were only stories. But her heart did not believe her. She took a deep breath, forced her voice to come out steady, and spoke into the seam. Hello. No answer. She waited. Nothing. The keypad beeped again, louder this time. The screen changed. Access granted. Nora's eyes widened. What? She had not touched the keys. She had not entered anything. The door had decided on its own. The wheel clicked again. This time it shifted slightly, not much, but enough to show it was no longer locked. Nora stepped back, panicked now. She looked at the crack between the boulders, the way back to the trail, to the world that made sense. She should run. But her legs did not move. She stood there, caught between fear and curiosity, and both were pulling her hard. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Nora jumped and grabbed it. The screen lit up, showing 1 bar of signal for the first time in hours. Relief rushed through her. She opened her messages, ready to text someone, anyone. But there was no new message. Instead, a blank draft screen opened by itself, and letters began appearing. Nora's fingers were nowhere near the keyboard. The words formed slowly, like someone typing with care. Turn back. Nora's blood went cold. She stared so hard she forgot to blink. Then another line appeared. It is not for you. Nora stepped away from the door, shaking her head. No, she whispered. No, no. The phone screen went dark. The signal vanished again. Nora's hands trembled as she shoved the phone back into her pocket. She looked at the door as if it might breathe. She forced herself to take a step toward the crack between the rocks. Then she heard the scrape again, louder, closer. Not frantic, not fast. Slow, like something that had all the time in the world. Nora backed up until her shoulder hit a boulder. Her mouth felt numb. The wheel on the door began to turn. Not quickly. Not with a sudden jerk. It rotated with steady pressure, as if an invisible hand were slowly opening it from the inside. Nora's eyes locked onto the seam. A thin line of darkness appeared as the door shifted outward. Air poured out. It was colder, deeper, carrying a strange smell like wet concrete and old paper. Nora's body screamed at her to run, but her mind was stuck on the thin opening. Inside, there was no bright light, no warm shelter. Only darkness that looked thick, like it could swallow sound. The door opened just enough to reveal a narrow gap. And in that gap, Nora saw something that made her stomach drop. A shoe. A human shoe, dusty and worn, lying on its side right behind the door as if it had been left there in a hurry. Next to it, a small object glinted faintly in the dark. A hiking tag. The kind people clip to their backpacks for fun, with a name and a little symbol. Nora could just make out the name engraved on it. Maya. Nora's breath caught. She knew that name. Not personally, but she had seen it online. A missing hiker from a nearby town. The photo had been shared in hiking groups. People had searched for weeks. Some said they had heard a scream in the mountains. Some said it was just a rumor. The search had eventually faded. But the name did not fade from Nora's memory. Now it was here, in a crack in a hidden mountain door that should never have existed. Nora's hands went to her backpack straps, gripping hard. Her mind felt split in two. One side shouted, "Leave. Save yourself." The other side whispered, "If you close this and walk away, you may never forgive yourself." The door creaked again, opening wider, just a few inches more. A faint light flickered deep inside, not like a lamp, but like a screen turning on. And somewhere in that darkness, something made a soft sound, almost like a tired sigh. Nora stood frozen. The mountain door was open, and whatever was inside was awake. Nora's legs finally listened to her fear. She stepped backward, then another step, almost tripping over the uneven stone. The open door kept breathing cold air into the crack between the boulders, like the mountain had opened a mouth. She should run. But the name on that tag, Maya, held her in place like a rope around her waist. Nora forced herself to think in small steps. First, she took out her phone again and lifted it high, turning slowly, hunting for even a single bar of signal. Nothing. She tried to open the camera, thinking a photo could be proof later. The screen lagged, then froze for a second. When it returned, the camera view looked wrong, like the colors were drained. A faint message popped up. No network. Nora's breathing became loud in her ears. She looked down at the open door again. The shoe lay there like a clue dropped on purpose. The air inside looked darker than normal darkness, thick like smoke, but it did not move like smoke. Then she noticed something else. A thin cord ran along the floor just inside the door, like a cable. It disappeared into the dark. Nora swallowed and tightened her grip on her walking stick. She did not want to go in. Every part of her knew it was a bad idea. But if Maya's tag was really there, then a person had been here. A person had crossed that line. And someone had hidden it. Nora took a small step toward the opening. The moment she got close, the keypad screen brightened again. The weak yellow light made the metal look sick. A new line appeared. One entry only. Nora stared. One entry, she whispered, like saying it out loud might make it less real. She leaned closer and peered into the gap. The shoe was real. The tag was real. Beyond that, she could not see far, but she could make out a flat surface like a hallway cut into rock. On the right side, there was something that looked like a wall panel, smooth and straight, not natural stone. This was not a cave. This was built. Nora backed away a half step. She tried to calm her mind by focusing on her supplies. She had a headlamp. She had water. She had a small first aid kit. She had a power bank. She also had common sense, which was telling her to leave. But her eyes kept returning to the tag. Maya. Nora set her backpack down and pulled out her headlamp. Her hands were shaking, so the strap caught on her hair. She fixed it quickly and clicked it on. A clean beam of light cut into the dark gap. The hallway inside reflected it in a strange way. The light did not spread like it would in a normal tunnel. It stayed tight, like the air was swallowing the edges. Nora felt her stomach turn. She reached the door and pushed it slightly. It moved with heavy resistance, like it was not designed for easy opening. The gap widened enough for her to slip through sideways. Her headlamp beam showed more of the floor. Dust. Small footprints. Not fresh, but not ancient either. Then Nora noticed lines in the dust. Drag marks. Like something had been pulled. She stood there, half in the outside world, half in the cold mouth of the mountain. She told herself she would only look for a moment. Only check if there was someone inside. Only grab the tag as proof. Then she would get out and run back to the trail. Nora slid inside. The moment her boots touched the floor, the air changed again. It felt heavier. The sound of the outside wind disappeared as if a door had shut behind her. She turned, and her heart jumped. The metal door was still open, but it had stopped moving. The wheel had gone still. Nora took one careful step forward, then another. The hallway was narrow, just wide enough for one person to walk without bumping both shoulders. The walls were a mix of raw rock and smooth metal panels. Every few meters, there were small circular vents, like the place was meant to breathe. The smell was stronger now. Dust, metal, and something bitter, like old cleaning chemicals. She reached the shoe and crouched. It was a hiking shoe, grey with green trim. A woman's size. The laces were cut, not snapped, cut clean as if with a blade. Nora's fingers went numb. She picked up the tag next. It was scratched, but the name was clear, Maya. There was also a small mountain symbol on it. Nora slipped the tag into her pocket. "I'm taking this," she whispered, like Maya could hear. The hallway continued deeper. The headlamp beam caught a sign on the wall, half covered by dust. Level 1. Nora stood slowly. She felt like she was walking into the wrong chapter of a book. She wanted to turn around, but her body kept moving as if pulled by a string. A faint hum started again, the same low sound she had heard from outside. It came from deeper inside. Nora followed it without choosing to. The hallway opened into a larger room. Nora stopped at the entrance and stared. The room was shaped like a square, carved out of rock but lined with metal frames. Old lights were mounted on the ceiling. Some were broken, hanging by wires. Along the walls were shelves and crates. Many were open, empty, or filled with odd items Nora could not place at first. Then her headlamp beam landed on something that made her chest tighten. Backpacks. Not one. Not two. A row of them, lined up neatly along one wall like a display. Some were bright colors, some faded. Many had small tags clipped to them. Some had keychains, little stuffed animals, or patches from national parks. Nora's breath shook. These were not stored like lost and found. They were arranged like trophies. She stepped closer, the beam of her lamp flicking from one to another. The dust on them was uneven, like someone had wiped certain places. Like someone still came here. Nora's mind tried to make sense of it. Maybe this was a rescue storage area. Maybe it was a ranger supply room. Maybe people left bags here during bad weather. But the arrangement felt wrong. Too careful. Too quiet. Too proud. Nora took another step. The hum grew louder. It was coming from the far side of the room where a second doorway led into another hallway. Above that doorway, there was another sign. Level 2. Below the sign was a small camera, its lens aimed directly at Nora. Nora froze. The camera light blinked red once. Nora backed away slowly, staring at it. "Hello," she said again, louder this time, forcing bravery into her voice. "If someone is here, I need help. I found a tag from someone missing. Maya." Her words died in the cold air. No answer came. But the hum shifted, and Nora realized it was not just a hum. It was a machine sound, like a generator or a set of fans. A system. Something was powered. Nora turned, ready to go back the way she came, ready to leave the tag as proof and run. Then she heard the door behind her. A slow, deep groan of metal. Nora spun around. The entrance hallway was still there, but the metal door at the far end had begun to move. It was closing. Nora sprinted across the room, her boots slamming the floor. She nearly tripped over an open crate but caught herself. She ran into the hallway and saw the gap shrinking. No, she breathed. She pushed hard, trying to reach it before it shut, but the door moved with steady force, like it was controlled by a motor. Nora jammed her walking stick into the gap. The stick caught for half a second. Then it snapped with a sharp crack. The door kept closing. Nora stumbled back, staring in shock at the broken wood on the ground. The door sealed shut with a final heavy click. Silence. Nora's chest rose and fell fast. She ran to the door and grabbed the wheel. It did not move. She slapped the keypad flap open. The screen glowed again. A new message appeared. Exit disabled. Nora's throat tightened. What do you mean disabled? She whispered. She pressed random keys. The keypad beeped once, then displayed a single line. Calm required. Nora stared at it like it was mocking her. Her thoughts turned wild. She was trapped. Someone had designed this place. Someone had put backpacks on display. Someone had a camera watching her right now. And the door had shut behind her like a decision. Nora forced herself to breathe slower, because the message demanded it, and because panic would make her stupid. She took long breaths, counting in her head. 1, 2, 3, 4. Her hands stopped shaking a little. The keypad screen changed again, almost like it had been waiting for her to settle. Proceed to speaking room. Nora looked around the larger storage room. On the far wall, past the backpacks, she noticed a small metal sign she had missed earlier. Speaking room. An arrow pointed to the level 2 doorway. Nora felt a sick twist of fear. Someone wanted her to go deeper. She backed away from the sign, shaking her head. No, I'm not doing that. She tried the wheel again. Nothing. She searched the cracks around the door for any lever, any manual release. There was nothing. Nora's headlamp beam shook as she moved. Her breathing grew fast again. Then, from a speaker hidden somewhere in the ceiling, a voice came out. Not loud. Not dramatic. Calm and flat, like an automated announcement. Welcome, Nora. Nora's blood turned to ice. She turned in a slow circle, shining her light at the ceiling. Who are you? She demanded. Her voice broke on the last word. The speaker crackled lightly. You entered on your own, the voice said. That matters. Nora's mouth went dry. How do you know my name? The voice paused, as if considering. You carried it in with you, it said. Your device. Your signals. Your patterns. Nora's phone felt like a brick in her pocket. She pulled it out, but the screen was black. No signal. No life, even though the battery had been full. She shoved it back in, trying not to let the fear show. Let me out. Not yet, the voice said. We need clarity. Nora's heart hammered. Clarity about what? The speaker crackled again, and the voice continued. About why you came. About what you will do with what you find. Nora swallowed. She glanced at the backpacks. Her headlamp beam landed on one with a bright patch shaped like a sun. On the strap was another name tag, different from Maya's, and Nora could not stop herself from reading it. Kim. Her stomach tightened again. These were people. Nora looked back at the level 2 doorway. The camera above it blinked softly. You're watching me, Nora said. Yes, the voice replied. You are safe if you cooperate. Nora's hands clenched. Safe? This is not safe. This is a trap. The voice stayed calm. Fear changes people, it said. We observe the moment they choose who they are. Nora shook her head hard. That's sick. Another pause. Proceed to the speaking room, the voice repeated. Then you may earn exit. Nora looked back at the locked door, then at the hallway leading deeper. She felt like she was standing at the edge of something that could not be unseen. She had a choice. Stay here and fight the door, waste energy, and maybe make things worse. Or go forward and learn how to get out. Nora set her jaw. Fine, she said, mostly to herself. But I'm not playing games. She moved toward level 2. As she passed the backpacks, she noticed a small detail that made her slow down. On the wall behind them, scratched lightly into the metal panel, were more words. Different handwriting from the "Do Not Open" warning outside. These letters were thin and rushed. If you hear the voice, do not answer it. Nora's breath caught. The voice from the speaker spoke again, softer now, as if it knew she had seen the message. Do not be distracted, it said. Your time matters. Nora's skin prickled. She glanced at the scratch marks again, then stepped away from the wall, forcing herself forward. The level 2 hallway was darker than the first. Her headlamp beam revealed another camera, then another. The vents here were larger, and the hum was louder, like the mountain itself was full of machines breathing. After a short walk, the hallway ended at a metal door that was already open a few inches. A thin strip of light spilled out, pale and steady, like a screen glow. Nora stopped just outside and listened. No footsteps. No voices. Only that hum, and her own heart. She pushed the door open carefully. Inside was a small room with smooth walls and a single chair bolted to the floor. Across from the chair was a glass panel. Behind the glass, there was darkness, like a one-way window. On the wall beside the glass panel was a small screen with a line of text. Sit. Nora stood in the doorway, refusing. I'm not sitting, she said. The speaker voice replied at once. You will, it said, still calm. Because you want to leave. And because you want the truth. Nora's breath trembled. She stepped into the room, keeping her back straight, her headlamp aimed forward. She did not sit. Then the screen changed. Show item. Nora blinked. What item? The speaker answered. The tag, it said. The one you took. Nora's hand went to her pocket, touching Maya's tag. Her fingers curled around it. A cold thought hit her, sharp and clear. They wanted to see if she would take it. They wanted to see if she would keep it. Nora pulled the tag out slowly and held it up in front of the glass. For a moment nothing happened. Then the pale light behind the glass brightened slightly, enough for Nora to see a shape. Not a person's full face. Just a hand, pressed against the glass from the other side. A human hand. Dirty. Thin. Trembling. Nora's breath caught in her throat. The hand moved slowly, dragging fingertips across the glass, leaving faint streaks. And then, in a hoarse whisper that did not come from the speaker, a real voice slipped through a small hidden vent near the floor. Help! Nora's eyes widened. That voice was not calm. It was weak and human. And it sounded like it was coming from the darkness behind the glass. Nora stepped closer, her heart pounding. Who are you? She whispered urgently. The speaker voice cut in, sharper now. Do not approach. But the weak voice came again, barely a breath. Don't trust it. Nora's whole body went cold. She stared at the hand, then at the speaker grill in the ceiling. Her mind raced. The calm voice was not alone here. Someone else was trapped. And they were trying to warn her. Nora lifted the tag higher, her hand shaking. Are you Maya? She asked. The trembling hand behind the glass stopped moving. Then the weak voice answered, softer than before, like it cost everything to speak. No. Nora's stomach dropped. Then where is Maya? Nora whispered. The hand pressed flat against the glass as if begging. The weak voice pushed out one more sentence, broken but clear. Under the mountain. The speaker voice snapped back in, cold now. Session ended. The lights in the room flickered. The door behind Nora slammed shut with a loud bang. Nora spun around and grabbed the handle. Locked. She turned back to the glass. The hand on the other side had vanished into the darkness. Nora's heart felt like it was tearing itself apart. She was trapped in a speaking room, locked in, with a hidden system watching her. And someone behind the glass had just told her Maya was under the mountain. Nora stepped back, breathing hard, and for the first time she understood something that made her knees feel weak. The door in the mountains was not just a place. It was a machine designed to pull people in. And now it had her. Nora stood alone in the speaking room, her back against the cold metal door. The lights above flickered once, then settled into a steady pale glow. The glass panel across from her showed only darkness again, as if the hand had never been there. Her heart would not slow. Someone had whispered to her. A real person. Not a recording. Not a system voice. And that person had warned her. Nora pressed her palm flat against the door behind her. Locked. Solid. She looked down at Maya's tag in her hand. The metal felt warm now, like it had absorbed her fear. The calm voice returned, but it no longer sounded patient. You broke protocol, it said. Nora lifted her chin. There is someone behind that glass. Silence followed, long and heavy. Then the voice replied, colder than before. There is a subject. A subject, Nora repeated. You mean a person? Words change nothing, the voice said. Your cooperation determines outcomes. Nora felt something harden inside her. Fear was still there, sharp and loud, but beneath it was anger. The backpacks. The names. The warning scratched into the wall. Maya's tag. You take hikers, Nora said. You trap them. You study them. Another pause. We select, the voice said. Those who step off the path. Nora let out a short, bitter laugh. People step off trails all the time. That does not mean they deserve this. Deserve is not relevant, the voice answered. Response is. The screen beside the glass lit up again. Final evaluation. Below it, a timer appeared. 5 minutes began counting down. Nora's stomach dropped. Evaluation for what? To determine release, the voice said. Nora's thoughts raced. 5 minutes was nothing. She needed information. She needed a weakness. She stepped closer to the glass panel, keeping her eyes on the darkness beyond it. What happens to the people who fail? Silence again. Nora waited, her breathing slow and controlled. Finally the voice answered. They contribute. Nora felt sick. Contribute to what? To understanding, the voice said. Nora clenched her fists. That is not an answer. The timer ticked down. 4 minutes. Nora thought of the weak voice behind the glass. Of the hand pressed flat against it. That person was alive. Barely, maybe, but alive. And Maya. Under the mountain. Nora moved suddenly, stepping close to the glass and lifting Maya's tag high. You track us with these, she said. You follow signals. Patterns. Devices. Yes, the voice replied. So you need us connected, Nora said. You need our phones. Our tags. Our data. The voice did not answer right away. Nora felt a spark of hope. She pulled her phone out again and held it up. The screen was still dark. You killed my phone, she said. We isolated it, the voice corrected. Nora nodded slowly. Then you can bring it back. The timer hit 3 minutes. Why would we? The voice asked. Nora took a breath. Because if you want to know who I am, you need to see what I choose. Another pause. Explain, the voice said. Nora swallowed. You want to see if people run, beg, lie, or obey. That is your test. Yes, the voice said. And right now, Nora continued, you are forcing one answer. Obedience. Sit. Speak. Cooperate. She stepped back and looked around the small room. That is not a choice. That is a cage. The timer ticked again. 2 minutes. The voice stayed silent. Nora pressed on. If you want truth, real truth, you need to give me a real option. The speaker crackled softly. And what option do you propose? Nora's heart pounded. This was it. Let me speak to the person behind the glass. No filters. No control. Just us. The silence stretched so long Nora thought the system had shut down. Then the voice answered. Denied. Nora's hope dipped, but she did not let it show. Then you fail your own test, she said. The timer showed 1 minute. You are not in a position to judge, the voice said. Nora lifted Maya's tag again and brought it down hard against the glass. The sound echoed sharply. Neither were you, Nora snapped. But you judged anyway. The glass did not crack, but the sound made something shift behind it. A faint movement. A breath. Nora leaned in close and whispered, "If you can hear me, tap once." For a second nothing happened. Then, very faintly, from behind the glass, there was a soft tap. Nora's chest tightened. Tap twice if there is a way out. Another pause. Then 2 taps. Nora's eyes burned. She turned her head slightly, speaking louder now. "You see that?" she said to the speaker. "You missed something. People still think. Still fight. Even when you cage them." The timer hit 30 seconds. The calm voice returned, but there was strain in it now. "You are interfering with the process." "That is the point," Nora said. "Processes break." She reached up and yanked her headlamp off, holding it in her hand. She clicked it to the brightest setting and pressed it flat against the glass. The sudden light flooded the darkness behind it. Nora gasped. Behind the glass was a narrow room, smaller than the speaking room. A person lay on the floor, thin and pale, eyes blinking against the light. Their wrists were marked with red bands where something had held them. Their lips were cracked, but their eyes were clear. Alive. Nora's heart leapt and broke at the same time. The speaker voice rose, sharp now. "Stop." The timer hit 10 seconds. Nora slammed her palm against the glass. "You want to know who I am," she shouted. "I am the one who does not walk away." The timer hit 0. For a moment nothing happened. Then every light in the room went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Nora stood frozen, counting her breaths, listening. The hum stopped. Silence pressed in, thick and deep. Then, somewhere nearby, metal scraped against metal. A lock disengaging. A door opening. Nora felt along the wall until her fingers hit the handle behind her. She pulled. The door swung open. Cold air rushed in, fresh and sharp, like freedom. Nora did not hesitate. She ran out of the speaking room, her boots pounding the hallway floor. Emergency lights flickered on, red and dim, casting long shadows. She followed the hallway back toward level 1, her heart racing. As she passed the storage room, she stopped. The backpacks were still there. Nora ran to them and grabbed as many tags as she could, stuffing them into her pockets. Names. Lives. Proof. A sound came from behind her. "Wait." Nora turned. The person from behind the glass stood in the hallway, leaning heavily against the wall. They were thin, shaking, but standing. Nora rushed to them and held them up. "We are getting out," she said. "Together." The person nodded weakly. "Door will open," they whispered. "Short time." Nora looked toward the entrance hallway. The metal door stood ahead, the wheel slowly turning on its own. They moved as fast as they could. Each step felt unreal, like the mountain might change its mind. As they reached the door, alarms began to sound behind them. Low and angry. Nora pushed the person through the opening first, then followed, squeezing through the narrowing gap just as the door shuddered. They stumbled out into the open air. The mountain wind hit Nora's face, clean and wild. She breathed like she had never breathed before. Behind them, the metal door slammed shut and went still. The keypad went dark. No welcome. No message. Just rock. They did not stop until they reached the trail. When they finally collapsed on the ground, Nora pulled out Maya's tag and held it tight. "What happens now?" the person asked softly. Nora looked at the mountains, at the quiet peaks hiding secrets beneath them. "Now," she said, "people listen." Weeks later, the story spread. Tags were shown. Photos were shared. Search teams returned to the mountains. The door was found, but it would not open again. No keypad response. No hum. Just stone. Maya was never found. But others were. And Nora never hiked alone again. Not because she was afraid of the mountains, but because she knew now that some doors were built to test how far silence could go. And she had learned the only answer that mattered. Do not walk away.